Hello everybody, what is up? Cobra Axis and Allies here. Today, because of the lack of major events in this week in wargaming, we decided not to do that this week, and today we've got a little spacer video. Now this is going to be a second painted review for this week, and here we have my painted Spanish Civil War pieces for Global War 1936. You can see we've got a nice little Spanish coaster that I actually made. I just spray painted the back side of a HBG coaster. So I had painted these a while ago, and if you guys have seen my videos a long time ago, there was a review I did on my pieces, but of course my camera quality and just overall quality has gotten a lot better since then, so I decided to do another video, and these are new models for the most part, so there is definitely some new stuff to come with this expansion set and its painted review I'll be showing you. So first up, I did get the new Admirals edition that HBG has up, so I definitely suggest you check it out, and I'll put a review up soon, and if you guys want to see it sooner than later, definitely leave a comment down below. But you can see we've just got some roundels and stuff. This is just a nice little container that I like to keep everything in. So first up, we've got the Italian CVT black shirts. Now, these guys are a part of the expansion set, and they come if Italy decides to support the Spanish Nationalist forces. So you can see we've got some nice little custom infantry that I painted up. This guy looks pretty nice. He's a tank driver. And basically these guys will just spawn in Italy if Italy decides to support the Franco's fascist forces. So I really like these guys, and I just use these guys as normal black shirt militia for Italy if I'm not using the Spanish Civil War set, because they do just look so nice. I'm always a huge fan of 172 infantry. They always look way better than normal infantry. So for the Spanish, I really like the repaints that I did for these guys. I decided, I think these are like 1980s era, like Americans and NATO forces, but I just thought they looked really good, and you can see just the detail on them is really awesome. I got these in a prize a while ago, and so they make for some of my favorite forces on the map. Like when I align Spain, I don't like to replace the units just because these guys look so good as infantry sculpts. Cavalry is just kind of the same. It's a Risk cavalry unit. There we go. But yeah, I also really like the fact that no infantry model is the same, so you know you're always going to get a different looking guy every time you get one. Oh yeah, this guy's one of my favorites. Yeah, you can see he's got that white shirt underneath his jacket. Yeah, overall just really nice looking sculpts. And then in the expansion set, there are all these special types of infantry units that you can get by random events. So these are the Army of Africa that start the game down in Morocco. So these I just used some Indian infantry, and because that was very similar to the uniforms that were used. You can see this guy, I've kind of cut him down so it looks like he's got a cap on. But another really nice piece. I did this to a lot of my pieces. If you guys saw my American Minorities at War set, you'll know that I pretty much repainted all of my custom infantry that you can get in most expansion sets that I have, just so that everyone looks different. You know, if you decide to use this expansion, you get to see all of these cool different types of infantry and all their different uniforms that they wore. Probably spent the most research on, you know, finding out information on what these different factions wore during the war. And this is the Irish Brigade, pretty cool unit that gets to come down from Ireland if he decides to, or if you get the random event. So yeah, I really like. Looks like I've got a little bit of chipping paint on that guy, but that's all right. You know, when he's down there on the board, you're not really gonna notice. He's got that large MG34 medium machine gun. Yeah, here I really like this guy too, the Spanish Legion. He's just got a cool outfit. Yeah. This guy's pretty average. He kind of looks like the regular normal guys because the regulars were pretty much just Spanish army forces that were a little bit more trained, but they were just like light infantry. They weren't anything too special. And this is the Veletros, and they are a Portuguese army group. You can see I just used the original German sculpt for these guys, but that's kind of what they ended up looking like in real life. You can see we've got some little yellow patches on him. Even though this is a normal infantry sculpt, I think he does look pretty cool. Getting into the Air Force, we've got the bomber. This thing I really like, how it came out. It's just a Fokker triplane model. I mean, not triplane, but Fokker bomber model. But I decided to go off of, it was a particular German early war bomber, and I forget the name of it, but that's why I've got that huge canopy on top. So we got a little ball turret in the back. We got a nice little canopy on the front and some large markers and roundels for designation. And that was another big thing. If you guys have seen my Air Force reviews, I went back and pretty much repainted all my aircraft with canopies, so they definitely look a lot better now. This is supposed to represent an early Italian dive bomber, like that can be Lend-Leased. The Nationalists. Got a fighter here. Just a Fokker, fighter. It's one of the Dutch neutral sets. And then one of my 3D printed biplanes from my World War I game. And what I decided to do, one of the little mods I have, is that the Spanish nationalist and Republican fighters, I replaced them with biplanes, and they're like kind of crappy fighters basically. They move to, so they can only attack adjacent zones, and they only attack at like a 3 and a 3, so they're definitely a lot less punch, but you know, if you're the Republican, if you're the German or Russian player, you know, you can Lend-Lease your forces some extra units, extra Air Force pieces if you want to have a full-on fighter. This is the España class battle cruiser. It's actually, the model I used was a Russian Gengit class dreadnought, and I did this a really long time ago where I basically, I think I modded it by, I sanded down the sides so they're nice and smooth, and I edited the superstructure up front, and I think a little bit in the rear, and basically that gives it a little more of the España class vibe. I think pretty much the only thing that kind of designates it as not being an España class battleship is the fact that these gun turrets would be offset on either side. But other than that, that is pretty much an España class battlecruiser or battleship. By World War II, it was more of class as a battle cruiser just because of the fact that it wasn't at a full fighting capacity for World War II standards. But definitely a formidable ship. The Nationalists were the guys who got that thing. The Republicans, they got the majority of the Navy, but their own España class battleship that they seized was basically incapacitated pretty quickly. So the Nationalists were able to use that as a really good asset. Here we have the cruiser, just a normal neutral cruiser, nothing too special with that. And finally for the Navy, we've got a transport, just a neutral transport. Yeah. Going into the land units, we have the mechanized infantry. Very nice looking HBG sculpt. Oh, I think that's a motorized, yeah. Even though it's got the tracks on the back, anything that's got a canopy on the top I consider a motorized. Here we've got a medium tank, if it ever lasts long enough for the Nationalist to get Lend-Lease a medium tank. I've got a model for it. Neutral, or not neutral, but this was a neutral tank, a Dutch, or a Polish model tank, and this is just the light tank. This could definitely get Lend-Leased. I think at one point I Lend-Leased the Spanish a light tank, but the only problem with the armor is the fact that it's all mountain terrain, so good luck actually getting any good combat use out of that. And then artillery, just a normal Dutch artillery piece. And I think that's just about it for their, for the land units for the Spanish Nationalist forces. And I guess next up we'll get into the Republicans, and I'm just going to clear off some of the Nationalists so that you can actually see the Republicans. Alright, and by the will of movie magic, you guys are now with a clear board, and we can get started on the Republicans. So, the infantry, again, I've used 1980s era infantry to get unique sculpts for all these guys. I definitely like the Republicans too, they look pretty good. I like the roundel color. I have not used yellow yet, so that was a nice switch up. Here we just got a guy throwing a grenade. Yeah, these guys, I think I used some 1960s era North Korean soldiers that I had left over. Just kind of, I threw in what I could for all these Spanish Civil War guys, and I think it came out pretty well. Definitely makes it look dynamic. I think just by adding these infantry, I mean, like, the board looks way cooler just having these guys standing around instead of the normal, everybody's the same regular infantry. Here's a cool looking, like, commando type guy. And I think for the militia sculpts, I just decided to use the normal militia. These are pretty much, every militia in my game is the same. Yeah, I think that's it for their infantry, unique infantry sculpts, that is. Getting on to their, like, elite infantry for the Admiral's Edition. Here we've got the Garibaldi Brigade from Italy, and basically these are representing, like, Italian communist forces, or at least more Republican-leaning, more liberal, and also factions that are more democratic, that lent towards the Republican side, that sent off to Italy, or I mean sent off to Spain. So this guy looks pretty cool. I really like the fact that he looks like a kind of advisor, like, you know, he's not getting stuck up in the combat. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite guys from this whole expansion set. This is the Lincoln Brigade. Basically, American forces that were unofficially sent. Basically just normal Americans that were either a decent amount of fascist, more right-leaning people came from across the world, but it was the Republican side that got the most support from international brigades of communist and more left-leaning individuals. So here you can see we've got the Lincoln Brigade, and this guy looks pretty awesome. Now, it doesn't look too great on camera, but basically he's wearing one of those lumberjack black and red plaid shirts, and from some of the pictures I found, this is actually what they would be wearing as a kind of unofficial uniform. So yeah, I really like this guy a lot, and he's got a pretty nice dynamic pose. So yeah, he's probably one of my favorites. And the Republicans definitely get a lot less infantry support. So here we had another international brigade. This is the Thalman Brigade. I think that this is a British group of infantry that was, or that was formed. Basically just British civilians that were sent. But yeah, and I like this guy a lot too. He's got a pretty nice dynamic pose with the nice large machine gun that he's got there on a sling. And yeah. So that's it for the Republican infantry sculpts. For the Republican Navy, we have got a cruiser. This is a original Axis and Allies cruiser. I mean, not a cruiser, battleship. I think it's the North Carolina class, but I just decided to use it as a cruiser here, just as a unique sculpt, so yeah. Here we've got the destroyer. Nice little destroyer sculpt. I did decide to give the Republicans their own España class battleship. Now, it isn't officially in any of the rule sets, but I think that I like to add a bit of chaos to my games, and the fact that the Nationalists get a España class battleship, even though they just had one, I say why not just give one to the Republicans too? And I think I do balance it. I think the normal Republican setup consists of this fleet right here, whereas the Nationalists get the España and a cruiser. And what I like to do, or not a cruiser, a transport, what I like to do is give the Republicans a extra España and the Nationalists an extra cruiser. So just adds a cooler dynamic when it comes to the seas. The fact that the Republicans can really try to blockade all of Spain, and the Nationalists have a decent chance at taking out some of those units. So then we have the Republican Air Force. These guys are kind of lame in the sense of I'm not a huge fan of their color schemes, but they are kind of accurate to what they should be. So the Republicans, what they liked to do, because most of the military actual tanks, stuff like aircraft, were aligned to the Nationalists. So the Republicans, whenever they would capture aircraft, sometimes they wouldn't even repaint them. Like, they would leave Nationalist roundels and everything on them. But their kind of standard scheme when they did capture an aircraft and had the time was to just spray it white or green and then give it some big red stripes on it. Let's see what else we've got. Oh yeah, here we've got the Republican dive bomber. I really like this thing. It's a Russian model, and I really like the fact we've got the little tail gun sticking off the back, and I like the little purple flagged livery on the back. But yeah, we do have an extra Republican destroyer. This is because in the what's it called? The Admiral rules, they get an extra destroyer just because Italy has the ability to use their submarines to destroy Republican units. Here we've got the medium bomber. Again, the same sculpt as the Nationalists, but I decided to paint it a little differently just to maybe represent like a different model of airplane, something like that the Russians might have sent over. So that's that. And somewhere in here we've got the fighter, little Yak Russian fighter plane. Let's see if we can get that to focus. Yeah, nothing too special with that. For land units, we've got the Republican truck, motorized infantry that the Russians can send over. And actually, I think there are a few random events that allow the Republicans to upgrade their, or the Republicans that you can, the Russian player can decide to upgrade Republican infantry into trucks. So that's something that you will sometimes see, especially because the trucks can move to and tow artillery. You can see not too much with the artillery, just some Russian sculpts that I painted up. We've got the armor. Here's a Republican medium armor. Again, if the Spanish Civil War drags on long enough, you may see a couple Russian medium armor getting sent over there. So we got that. And a Russian light tank. Now, in the Admiral Edition rules, you probably might see some light tanks in Republican Spain because of the fact that there's a really cool rule where Russia has the ability to just send straight up units that they already have to Spain. So like their medium tanks that I think Russia starts with about 4 in the game, they're allowed to just send those over to the Republicans. Same with fighters, without having to build a unit meant for Lend-Lease. And of course it gets returned at the end of the war, so it's definitely a really cool ability. And it also allows Russia to actually, get some more support over to the Republicans, because a lot of the times Russia is just kind of sitting there and they don't want to get too involved because it'll waste some of their money. And last up, I don't know why I didn't throw in for the Nationalists, but I do have a Republican mechanized infantry, just because, maybe the Russians will send one over. Like if it gets to 1939 and they can send their medium tanks, maybe they'll send a mechanized. So yeah. And that is just about that. I do have a supply marker, a nice 3D printed painted supply marker. This is by Wolfsten's Designs. It came from Combat Miniatures in my Combat Miniatures prize that came a couple months ago that I did a video on. It's my the German infantry ones. And yeah, so because there is a lot of supplies that get sent over to Spain, just decided to keep it in this box just in case you did want to send some stuff over. And there is one last unit that I forgot to cover. I've got to find it in here somewhere. Let's see. Aha, there it is. So, if Germany elects to send support to the Republicans using the Admiral Edition rules, they get a air transport that is just sent right over in the beginning of the game. And so here we have that actual air transport. And so basically what this is a German, crap, I forget the name of it. It's basically what came before the Heinkel 111 medium bomber. Now, this is actually a Russian bomber, but I decided to use it as a German early war medium bomber. And in this case, it's in transportation duties. And the reason I've got this really weird looking camouflage scheme on it, if you can even call it camouflage, is because during the, a little bit of the tail in there, during the Spanish Civil War, when Germany decided to send over some air transports, basically to airlift the Army of Africa out of Africa, they basically sent over some of their air transports that were disguised as civilian planes, whereas Germany had actually done that before, where a lot of their bombers were actually, and air transports were actually civilian planes that could be converted into warplanes. So we've got it painted up in that actual scheme, so definitely looks pretty cool. And that again just starts in Spain as a Condor Legion, and basically that gives the Spanish the ability, or the Germans the ability to ferry over some of the Army of Africa guys, because they will probably have their transports sunk by the Republican Navy. So yeah, overall I hope you guys enjoyed my look at my painted Spanish Civil War Republicans and Nationalists for Global War 1936, and I hope to see you guys again. Cobra, out.